let's get started with Integrate Pest Management webinar. So this is the third webinar of a series of 4 that we are making uh, to promote more sustainable practices in agriculture, right? So before I break down what is an integrated pest management program, let's talk about a few general data about pests around the world, right? According to Food and Agriculture Organization, it is estimated that the annual food losses from pest attacks are equivalent to the food amount needed to feed 1 billion people. So by now, we are around 7 billion people in the globe, right? On Earth. So pests cost estimately, in an average annually, the losses of food amount to feed 1 in 7 uh, people in the world. So that is a significant and huge impact, right? According to the World Health Organization, from United Nations too, they are more than 1,000 pesticides worldwide. FAO estimate for okay, let's explain this other point, and then I will be briefly talking about this. Okay, so according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, too, in 2018, it is the most recent data that they have on their website, uh, that were applied around 4 million tons of pesticides worldwide. And when we are talking about tons of pesticides, we are talking about the active ingredient of the pesticide. If you take any package or bottle of X products or chemical, when you read the label there, you will find the active ingredient, and when you see this, the amount of the active ingredients mostly range from 1% to 5% of the total of the bottle, right? So imagine how much of them are applied in the world to reach those numbers. In Bahamas, it was just around 254 tons. It is, if you compare this to other countries, it is in a small amount, to say in some way, and which is good, right? But if we are talking about to promote agriculture and increase the production, we don't want to increase the amount of this kind of chemical use, right? So at the other hand, in the USA, where USBI and Puerto Rico are territories, they are used 400,077 9 tons. That is a lot more of this kind of product use. By the way, United States of America, it is the second country in the world that in the from they are placed in the second in their second place of the most of the top 10 countries using pesticides. That is one of the reasons that America is the second continent in where pesticides are used, right? So the first one is Asia. So what we want is lower those numbers, and for those numbers, there are many techniques in agriculture. One of them, it's what we were going to talk today. That is an integrated pest management. So for to put in context from where those kind of practices came, we need to go back to the around the decade of 1960s. So by this time was published a book named Silent Spring, right? So, okay, and first of this, what is an integrated pest management is the implementation of different methods for pest control in combination with constant monitoring in order to reduce the use of pesticides. So we will be breaking down this part by part along of the presentation, right? So this concept begins in the 1970s by the environmentalist movement in the United States. So then this kind of practice spread around the world by today, right? But what's the first step of the base for this, it was that book that you see there, The Silent Spring, published in 1972 by Rachel Carson. So Rachel Carson was a woman who works for the agency that we know today as Fish and Wildlife from USA government, right? But she were a marine biologist and were an activist too. Also, she published around 5 or 6 more books. One of them, The Sea Around Us, that it has been one of the bestseller of environmental books of the history, right? So Rachel was a strong woman, an activist, and she plays the base for the movement of environmentalist movement. Also, uh, this book, this movement set the basis for to create the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, on the United States. So the book was about the use of DDT pesticide. By that time, was one of the broad use pesticide in US and also other countries in the world, because this pesticide was created to control the vectors from malaria during World War II that was sprayed in the Pacific islands and places, right? So after at the end of of World War II, so this kind of chemical, as well as other ones like the synthetic fertilizer, something like this that was used prior to make bombs, were put into agriculture. That is one of the that is part of what we name green revolution, right? So we know today what 70 years then we know the implication of the adoption of those practices, right? So that is the beginning of what we know today, or what brings today us to have this kind of practices or this kind of program, name it integrated pest management. So the main benefits for the integrated pest management is to reduce the cost of productions by limiting the use of pesticides. And this is really, really good, because our operation, no matter how big or how small it is, or how ecological or environmental friendly it is, at the end of the day, it's the way we earn life, right? So when we adopt these kind of practices, we are lowering our production costs. And this is good because this implies more money in our pocket, right? It is contribute to the economical viability of production, so limits the detrimental impacts to human health, other animals, and environmental in general. Because let me explain this. When we are talking about be more sustainable in the environmental way, we are not talking about to save the world. In my very own opinion, world has been here for million of years. It's have passing through many changes. But if we take the existence of the humankind, if we put the existence of the world in a span of 24 hours or a day, human has just been here just for around a second, and our impact, especially after the industrial revolution, has been really, really rough, right? So right now, when we are talking to save the world, we are not talking to save the world. We are talking to save the humankind, right? And it is really important, because the one as you, as me, as a major part of the people are more prone to suffer the impacts of global warming, right? So all those chemicals that we are using to control pests in our farms, they can be translocated easy to other ecosystems. So from any of us, of the most people of us from Bahamas, from USBI, from Puerto Rico, that we are lives on islands, uh, they can be really easy transport to our marine ecosystems, having a really huge impact on the reef. And the reefs are, fish nurseries. They are barriers against the big swells, and they provide to us and a lot of things. So anyway, no matter if you are living in the center of the United States, or in Puerto Rico, Bahamas, or USBI, so each action that you make in your daily life have an impact worldwide, because everything here is connected. Okay. So what is an integrated pest management, or the IPM's components. So first one is prevention, second one is monitoring, third one is choose options, the fourth one is action, and then the evaluation of the program. So let's break down this. Okay, let's start with the prevention. So prevention, when we are talking about prevention, we are talking about the practices that we make prior to sow our crop, right? So if for those one of you that has been following this series of webinar, the first one we did was about the harvest planning, right? So this is where this is essentially what we were trying to explain in that webinar, right? So when we will be planning about our harvest season, so the pest control start with this planning of the harvest season. So there you one of the example of things that you can make to prevention, it is crop and variety selection. And here I want to point that the our next webinar will be about the seed selection and preservation, right? But we are talking there. We will be explaining how do you make selection of your crops to improve uh, to improve their performance, right? But when we are selecting which kind of variety we will be using, it is really important because mm, not not all, but many varieties that have been improved for years are more focused on yield. And sometimes when we just focus on one trait as yield, we lose other traits as pest resistant, right? And make those variety more productive, but they need to you need to put more effort to get there, right? So sometimes those traits of resistance to the pest and things like this has been lost when you are just focused on one trait when you are making crop improvement, right? So other thing is harvest season. So in harvest season, so it is not just important about the climate. It is important because when you know the cycle of the pest, sometimes during the year, the incidence of this pest will be lower, and it is good time to plant those crops that are more prone to be attacked by those pests, right? Other thing are pest host plants. Sometimes we have other crops that are not attacked by X pest, but serve as a host for that pest. And then when you plant the crop, other crops, that those pests can move easily and attack those crops. So yesterday when I was making this webinar about the Spanish version, um, I was telling about one experience, my first experience when I graduated from college. I was working as technician for the experimental station from the University of Puerto Rico. By that time, that at the end of the first decade of 2000s, in Florida, in Puerto Rico, were heavily attack of disease named citrus greening, affecting orange production and on all the citrus production. It was This disease is caused by a bacteria, by a combination of bacteria that they live in the vascular axis of the citrus trees, and by this they create a barrier for the nutrients to flow to the upper parts of the trees, and the trees and uh, the end of the trees, they are continuous decaying up until they die, right? But by this time, we did an experimental field with citrus. So in 6 months of sampling, we just find two insects of the ones that disseminate those bacteria, right? And it was achieved because we eliminate the host plant. The host plant of this kind of insect was an ornamental shrub that it was heavily used in Puerto Rico decades ago. So that's the reason why it is an example. That's the reason why it is so important sometimes to know what it is around your farm, or around your harvest areas, uh, that can cause those kind of problems, right? Other thing it is crop rotations, and we explained this in our first webinar on in planning, harvest planning, crop association too as well, but we will review this in the next slides. Other thing it is soil health, and our last webinar was talking about soils. And as I mentioned at that webinar, and I'm always been mentioning, the base for a healthy and successful agriculture, it is a healthy soil. Soil, it is the base for a side of successful agriculture. It is the base too for a healthy environment, right? And that's the reason why it is on both, because when we have a healthy soils, plants can eat well. And I see this because the plants take take their food from soil. When we have a soil that it is unhealthy, the soil can provide a good diet for same in some way to the plants, and plants can grow really strong, and they will tend to have a better immune system, because as us, plants have an immune system too. So you can compare with us with our diet it is poor, we are more prone to get sick. That's the really same thing that happened to the plants. When we are just focused on the conventional fertilization, that is just focused on nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, we are giving our plants a poor diet. And let me explain this. So, when we put a fertilizer high in nitrogen, most time we say, "Oh, look, our plants look greener, look bigger," but you're accelerating their growing in an artificial way, and the cellular growing, it is so fast that the cells of the plants are not strong, and look more um, they are more prone to be attacked by the insects, because the insects, in the way they has been evolved, they have the mechanisms to know when the plant is best to be attacked. And this is one of the reasons, when you use all this kind of commercial fertilizer or conventional fertilizer, you are attached to use a heavy amount of pesticides too, right? So that is the reason why we need to improve our soils, just to make our plant stronger, right? Aside of other benefits, okay? And in the prevention, you can make many other practices that we know about as cultural practices, and we'll be discussing some of them at the ending of this presentation, right? So just to refresh your memory, what is crop rotation? When we are talking about the crop rotation, it is that in the same field that you plant uh, X crop, if you plant tomatoes in this field, for next time I will not plant tomatoes again for the next harvest season, neither any of the crops that are under the same family of tomatoes. For example, tomatoes are for the family Solanaceae, and we will not plant in the same field potatoes or peppers or eggplants, or even tobacco, that the tobacco is under the same family of tomatoes, right? So we will be putting there another crop as cabbage or cucumbers, or whatever you want to name it, or just let this field to rest. It's highly recommend that at the same time does not plant the same crops in the field, you switch to you will plant another crop that the part that you harvest is different than the prior crop, if you plant tomatoes, you are picking the fruit. So next time, it's highly recommend to plant any crop that you can harvest the root or the leaves or something like this. That's help to maintain the fertility of the soil as well. Okay, the other thing is crop association. In this chart, you can see some of the more most popular crops, and have the recommendation with each crop that they can be associated or intercropping, right? Sometimes the intercropping is used to repel best to. So for example, if I have lettuce, around the lettuce or between the lettuce, I can plant for saying some example, we can plant some chives. And sometimes the chives, the smell, in the way they smell, they serve as repellent for other plants as well. There are many other crops that you can integrate or make intercropping that help you to put out those pests. Other thing it is, they're not, sometimes it's not just the fragrance they smell, right? But other times there are plants that produce some chemical systems that they exudate by the roots many times, that help to prevent or to repel other pests. As one example of these are the marigold. I don't know, marigold, if it's really common flower. So most a huge part of the species under or of marigolds, they produce and they exudate a chemical substance by the roots that repel the nematodes in the soil. And for this reason, it is highly recommended to plant this kind of flowers with the plantains, because nematodes are really, it's one of the most common pests for plantains or bananas in the tropics, right? And nematodes are soil-borne roundworms, but most of them are microscopic. Okay, after this, when you make all this planning, all the prevention prior to sow the crop, when you have the crop on field, it is really important to monitoring or scouting that field uh, periodically, right? In my recommendation, it is good to make it not less than one time a week. Okay, so the scouting, it is just you go to the field and look in the plants and looking what are happening with them, right? So sometimes we are walking around our crops and we are focusing on how beautiful and well they are growing and feeling proud about it. But when we are making this kind of monitoring or scouting, we need to put attention on of each detail that we are seeing on field, right? First step, it is to look the field as a whole, the whole picture, the big picture of the field. Sometimes you can uh, identify some patches of plants growing wrong, and that will help you to use more efficient your time and move just to those patches and look what are happening. Sometimes are not pests or disease. Sometimes it's just that the irrigation system are not working well in these areas and need more water. But some other times that can help you to identify fast any kind of problem that you are experiencing with pests or diseases, right? So then once you look the field in the big picture, then you start to walking on your field, and you will be examining each plant in detail, but not each plant, So if you have 100 plants for some number on your field of broccoli, if you have broccoli 100 plants of broccoli in your field, you will not go one by one checking them. You make a random selection of plants, you know? So it is highly recommended that for each 100 plants, you examine 10 plants, right? And you then need to evaluate those plants, the one you pick, in detail. You'll need to look from the upper part. It is highly recommended to see under the leaves because many, as you know, many of the insects tend to be under under the leaves because they are there hiding from the sun. So that is really important. That's a reason why it is really important to examine those plants on details. And for this reason, it is really good to have some tools that help you to make this scouting uh, more efficient, right? One of those tools are the magnifying glasses, right? As the one we have there. The one we have there, you can purchase one of them or alike of this from less than $20. Okay, so in this case, the one you have on screen, say 10x. So that's ensure you that you will see any of the objects that you are seeing through 10 times bigger than the real size. Okay, so and for just to add, 10x, it is the first objectives that you, or the lens that you can find in any lab microscope. So one of those one lens with this power, it is more than enough to help you to make this scouting and identify pests. Okay. Oh, my bad. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So in which way it is recommended to make this scouting and walk through the field. So there there are the 3 months common scouting patterns. First one is named transect. As well, you can make it horizontal or vertical or the way you want. The second one is named zigzag, and the third one is in a diamond way, right? In my very personal opinion or experience, I prefer the second one, the zigzag, because zigzag is more random, and as well you cover more part of your field and you have more representative um, sample of what is going on your field, right? So in my very opinion way, this is the best way. So you make your map of your field and you start to walk in this way. As more random you can make it, it is better, right? There are other patterns that you can find if you look on internet. They are other named patch pattern that you just pick some specific point through um, to the field. But in my very opinion, the best way to make it, it is in the center one in zigzag. You cover more area. Okay. So when you are making the scouting of the monitoring of your monitoring the field, it is heavily or you must have a detailed record, right? So you must keep this record. That this will help you uh, to know what's happening in your field and then to evaluate the IPM program, right? So if you look online or you review any literature about IPMs, so you will find a lot of charts that you can use for keep this record. So what I recommend, or tables, right? My bad, tables, not charts. What I recommend it is if make it as simple that you can simple as useful for you, right? So, but the important details that you have in this kind of table are the date, the name of the person that make the scouting, the field identification. If you have three fields, field one, two, or three, so just put one number, name, or any way that you can identify this field, right? Could be name, could be number, could be letter, whatever you prefer, right? So then you have need to put in this chart general and specific observations. So one of most important thing, it is the, if you find uh, if you find any kind of pest in your field, how many of them you find it, or how many plants were affected by this pest. Why? Because if you find one or two insects, or 10 insects, or they are just one or two plants affected by the pest, depending of the size of the field, uh, maybe it is not significant to take action on it, right? So we will discuss this when you take action within the few next slides, okay? And there we go. So then you make the scouting, you know how you feel it is. If you are fine, if let's suppose that you find any kind of pest in your field. So what you start to make it is to uh, if you see that the incidence or the population it's big enough, you need to choose options, right? So for choose the option, or that the option of the action you will take, they are two concepts that we'll define here, and then we will break down two of them, right? So the first one is the economic threshold, and the economic threshold, it is the level of damage or population density of a pest at which it is recommended to start controlling it. Okay, this is the economic threshold. I will explain more in detail in the within the next slides. Okay, so let's pass to the other one, Pam, please. Okay, the other concept, it is the economical injury level. So the economic injury level, it is the level of injury or the population density of a pest that caused losses in production for the same value that its control entails. Okay, so this is the point where the control action when you are will use have will be cost the same of the amount of crop that you will lost. After this point, trying to control the pest, it is not economical. It is not viable in the economical way, because you will be putting a lot of effort and money trying to control this. For and the other hand, the damage and the losses that will cost never will return you the inversion you are making trying to control that pest. Okay, so we can see this in this chart. We can see this simply, right? So don't get intimidated by this. Okay, so in the shade, in green shade area, this is the in the area that we need to keep the population of our insects. When you are going up and you reach this peak, the economic threshold, this is the peak when you it is most recommended to take action to control that pest, right? After this peak between the two lines from the economic threshold and economic injury level, it is the time, it is the span of time that you can make something with to don't without having a big investment of time and money. After the economical injury level, after this, as I mentioned, it is not suitable to make any kind of effort to um, to control that pest. And sometimes, even when you are in the, and sometimes it is the most smart way to deal with it. Just let's eliminate that crop. Let's give some rest to that field, and then we restart, because it is not viable to or suitable to make any effort that we will be spending time and money, and that is what we don't want. So how we identify the economic thresholds for X crop. So there has been done many research about it, and we will share some information about this for from threshold for some of the most commonly crops, right? Um, because the factors that you those thresholds depends on many factors, just not of the kind of pest of the crops, but also the climate conditions and any other and many other factors, right? So we will share with you some of the economic thresholds as well. If you keep a record, you can make this kind of your on-farm research and start to set which is the best point to make those kind of control on your farm. That's one of the other reasons that it is really important to keep a record of your crop. Okay, let's go to the next one, Pam. So when we identified or when we reach the economic threshold point, it is when we need to take an action, right? So the aggressiveness of this action will be proportional to the incidence of the pest, or what we name pest pressure. Pest pressure, it is how intense this pest is attacking your crops, or how heavily it's the population of the pest in your crop on your field, right? So let's see the way of action we have, the options of action we have. So let me stop here and explain something. So it is not just a linear process what we are talking about it. Most of those actions we will discuss, you can make it prior to reach the economic threshold point, right? So those actions could be used prior, or other of them, the most aggressive ones, when you reach that point. So, and let's remember what I've been mentioned along of those webinars. So the right agriculture, in my opinion, it is not a recipe. It's a set of knowledge that we have and we apply to our operation according to our conditions. This is one of the big difference of the uh, of different. This is one of the main points that differentiate the agriculture done with the techniques of that we have since Green Revolution. That they say, hey, let's take this technical package where they provide the same seeds to everyone, the same fertilizer program, and the same pest control program included a heavy pesticides uses, right? So the right agriculture, it is not a recipe, you know, it is a set of knowledge that we have and we apply in the best way, or the most suitable way to our operation, because each farm it is different, right? Okay, so which kind, back to the integrated pest management presentation. Okay, so which kind of action we can take? So time of actions, they are the ones that we name cultural, are the ones I was some of them were discussed when we are planning our harvest. Other one are in the way we control weeds. The other thing are the way we manage the water, or uh, any of those day-by-day practices we make on the farms. It is what we call cultural farms. Some pests could be controlled by this kind of practices. Other one are physical or mechanical. So physical or mechanical, it is when you are using, for example, some barriers, as you can and you can use trees, shrubs, on other crops that you can make rows of them as use as barrier for pests. Sometimes no matter how big or small it is, for some pests, those kind of walls that we make with those barriers are big enough to block the path of those pests or animals, right? So we are. Let me say another thing. When we are talking about pests, we are not just talking about insects, right? There are other ones that can affect us. For example, in Puerto Rico, we have a huge problem in agriculture with the green iguanas that came to our island in the 70s as exotic pests. And now for the farmers, it is a headache deal with them. So for example, in my experience, what I used to work with them, it is a physical method that it is to put a nest, a kind of nest that is used to protect the fruit from the birds. This nest, it's really useful to keep outside the iguanas pest from our crop in Puerto Rico, for make an example. Okay, so this is a physical way to control the pest. Other thing are the scarecrow. And the scarecrow, it is a physical barrier to keep the birds outside of the crop or of the field. But so animals are intelligent too. So sometimes those physical barriers that we use, they learn how to skip. I don't. I think that some of you have noticed this in your production, right? So other way that we control pests are the behavioral way or the ethological way. Okay, these practices tends to we use the behavior of the pest against them. For example, the use of pheromone traps for the insects, right? And making a parenthesis here. So traps not all the time are the best way to use traps are as a monitoring tools, not as a control, not as a control methods. So I will explain this soon. Okay. So other way or example for behavioral control, it is if we know the insects like or you can use for okay you can use some of the let me think on English. I was thinking in Spanish. Maybe. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so another example of this, it is the to know the life cycle of the pest, because when when they are on they tends to reproduce in X season of the year. So in this way, you can skip this season and plant other crop that will not be affected of this. This is those are the methods that you are using. Another example for this, it is most of the insects responds to the lights in the night. That's the reason why we have those kind of lamps in homes, that they are the light that produce electricity and kill the insects. So when years ago, one of the things I learned in a seminar was from a farmer in Florida, that he used he tend to spray a natural insecticide at the night, but he were attracting the all the bugs, all the insects with the lights. When he were applying this at the night with a big lights in the tractor, and he was driving through the fields attracting those insects, and when they came near to the light, they was using a mist of this spray to kill them. So this is some example of behavioral control techniques, right? Other one is the biological control, and there are plenty of practices we can make it. Sounds as a joke, but one biological control in Puerto Rico from iguanas are dogs. There each day it's more common for farmers to have dogs trained to to hunt the iguanas, and they are really useful, right? So in the Caribbean, we have a not so nice history, because it is really important to know the behavior of the biological control and the pest that you want uh, to to control, right? One example of this, it is the sugarcane frog, right? The Bufus marinus. This is the frog that we have most commonly in Puerto Rico and within the Caribbean. This species of frog came from Cuba and were used as a biological control for the sugarcane bug. The problem was that this animal reproduced so fast and have another things in the menu in the Caribbean, and that's the reason it is an invasive species. So sometimes when we are using biological controls, it is really important to know all the behavior of this biological control to not cause problem in the future, right? Because it is not just because it is biological that will be safe, right? So other example of biological control are the ladybugs, the use of ladybugs, that they are predators or other insects, sometimes birds. Some farmers use some techniques to attract some kind of birds to the farms to use them as a hunter from some of the pests that they have been having, and things like this. A biological control has been used around as long as the farming history of the since the humans start to make agriculture for same in some way, right? So, and by now in the modern history, the biological control has been more technified, and that's the reason why you can find some of the pesticides made by biological components, and we will show you some of them soon, okay? And the last one, it is the chemical control, and it is the last one because in integrated pest management program, this is the last resource that you will use. IPMs uh, does not discriminate against the chemicals, or you are forced to put those chemicals outside of your operation, but it will be your last option because because the main target of the IPMs is to reduce this use of the use of this kind of materials, right? So it is not bad. It is not prohibited within an IPM, but it is your last resource because this is what we want to reduce, right? Okay, so if it is your option, I highly recommend to understand what you are using and the right dosage. The right way to use this includes to know how uh, it's will be behavior on the soil, on the water, on the plant, when you will be harvesting your crop, because some of them have a period that you could not or you must not consume the produce after application of this. So that's the reason why you need to know so well what you are using, right? And as I mentioned yesterday, one of the families of those chemicals or agrotoxics, as I personally name there, are the neonicotinoids. And the uses of neonicotinoids, it is really really common nowadays. And those kind of chemicals, as the one name alias is the commercial name, the component, the active ingredient of this chemical it is named imidacloprid. So those kind of chemicals are heavily responsible for the dying of the bees around the world, right? So in the first decade of the 2000, around the world were experiences the colony collapse disorder, right? That or the vanishing of the bees. And one of the factors linked to this was the heavy use of this kind of agrotoxics, right? That's the reason why we want to reduce the use of them, and it is heavily recommended for you when you decide to use it or to purchase, know how to handle it in the more safe way. Okay. So after all of this, after all of those steps, the last thing you will do is the evaluation of your IPM, the IPM you were using. So after each crop of harvest, the effectiveness of the integrated pest management program must be evaluated in detail. That's the reason why it is so important to keep a record of the practices you have done during this harvest season, right? Because that will help you to maximize and improve your practices in on farm. Okay. So those are all the components and all of the steps of IPM. If you want, we will be sending more information about this. Okay. So I just want to point in some details of what I discussed, and it is just, it is kind of funny of this. I don't know how many of you have seen the opportunity to see this image. So those are the ladybugs. Ladybugs are really good biological control. They are predators. So but sometimes we just see and say, hey, how cute they are, but they are a killer machines, right? So they are eating there all those pests as aphids and scales most of other ones that we don't want to there. But other reason, it is important to know the stages and the way the insects looks, right? Because sometimes the beneficial insects, they are so different from the adults to the other stages of their metamorphosis that you will sometimes you tend to associate them with pests, right? So let's see the cycle of metamorphosis cycle of the ladybug, right? See on the top, it is the adult of the insects. There are the eggs, but the pupa and the larva stage, they look so really different than the adults. And this touched me near because when I start farming around 12 years ago, I was having an heavy attack of those insects that I don't know, and then start to remove them manually from the plants. I, I worked crazy for 2 or 3 days. Up to one of my friends come to my farm, to the my yeah my I was having a small farm, and he said to me, "Hey, worries, it is not a pest. This is the larvae of the ladybugs, and they are so beneficial." And I felt so bad for them. So that's the reason why it is important to know those kind of details to identify well the beneficial insects, right? So on the other picture I just want to show you, it is that the traps, as I mentioned, traps are more used as more than a control method for monitoring them. And it is on Spanish, but this bottle, what is on the label, it is insect pheromones, right? So you can buy commercially for a low cost the pheromones of X insect or pest, and use trap and put on traps as the one you see there in that picture to attract those insects to the traps. So, and the picture at the right part of your screen, it is a trap you make it made by reuse material, by with reused material, right? So sometimes those kind of components inside the traps are a combination of the pheromones and different kind of alcohols to attract the insects. So traps, if your field is small or your farm is small, or if you are making this in a enviro control structure, they could be used as a control method, not just as a monitoring. But the main use of the traps are for monitoring, to help you in the monitoring of from the pest. So there, this picture is from one of our food network producer participants in Puerto Rico. The name of the project, it is Agropec, and Agropec, by the way, I have to mention that they are the most sustainable hydroponic operation that I ever seen. So they are using those films that you can see from one pole to the other are sticky traps. So in this enviro control uh, structure, those traps are being used as a control method. So the color of the traps have a use too, because the insects, the behavior of the insects make them to respond more, or be more prone to be attracted for the colors. That's the reason why most of the traps that you can see are blue, yellow, or red, right? So it is an example of the uses of the traps. So Pam, let's see this last slide prior to pass the ball to our friend from Abaco Neem. So those are commercial biological products that you can find on the market nowadays. Okay, so the first one it is named Dipel. Dipel is heavily used to control the some kind of worms, especially the ones that cause damage on the corn. The Dipel, it is a bacteria that you can find on the soil. It is a soil-borne bacteria. So this bacteria produce a toxin that damage the digestive system of the insects. Okay, so as the bacteria, it is named Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT, and that's maybe sounds familiar with you because of the transgenic technology of corn, of the BT corn, but it is not the same. because on the corn, in the transgenic plants of corn, you have the ear corn producing this on the grains, produce this kind of toxin. So what they done, it is to put those genes within the genome of the corn to make the corn to produce this toxin. And at the end, animals or us, we are consuming those grains with the toxin, right? It is not the same. So using these products, you are just applying the bacteria to the uh, to, to the to the plant for a time, and the bacteria is the one that are producing the toxin. It is not the plant. That's the reason it is really different. And to use this technology in this way is really safe. Are not the same. Using products with Bacillus thuringiensis, it is so far from use the BT corn technology. I just want to clarify this. The other one is named Mycotrol. Mycotrol, it is a produce made by using by the spores of a fungi um, named Bavaria genus, and the other one, the last one you see at your far right, it is named Spinosad. And Spinosad, it is the produce it is made using the produce that we got for the fermentation of a bacteria named Saccharomyces that was discovered in the abandoned sugar plantations in VIs, by the way. So all of those trees, as all of those of that tree, there are many other products that you can find on market, right? But there are ways that you can make produce some of those products uh, in your farm, right? To handmade for some in some way. So those produce. So there are many recipes online that you can find it. I think we have some of them, and we can share with you with our participant when we send the follow-up email, right? So as well, I in my personal experience, I have kind of experience making those kind um, of products at home, right? So I can make I can share any of my experience with it. So okay, let's stop here. Has been a lot of information as well as always. But if someone have any question, this is the moment to make it. Pam, I think so, or you prefer to pass with Abaco Neem?
Yes, so actually we are not done yet.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, I'm inviting you all to start submitting them, but we're gonna approach them towards the end. At this point, I actually want to present our guest of honor for the evening. They are Abaco Neem. They're one of our grantees, and they have been using Neem for a while in various methods and have worked on various products. But today they're going to be speaking to us straight from their farm and kind of showing a little bit on one of the methods that they use and a little bit more about the tree. So actually, I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen so we can start seeing Nick and Daphne from Abaco Neem. So Nick, Daphne, can you hear me? Are you guys doing all right over there?
Yeah, we're here. Thank you, Pamela. We're all set and ready to go. Just want to
Awesome.
thank you guys for this opportunity.
That was a great presentation by Juarez. That was wonderful.
Thank you, thank you.
And I'd like to emphasize all the attendees out there, please keep records, like he said, records and visual inspections. Okay, you have to do your scouting. It's so important. Thank you, Juarez.
Okay, so right now I'm going to just flip my camera and turn the presentation over to Nick, who is going to basically take you through what we can do with neem cake and the neem tree.
Really quickly with the neem tree. Our farm, we're proud to say that we are certified organic. As for what we know, we're the only certified organic farm in the country. We've been farming the neem tree for 28 years. It's really a tree for solving global problems in agriculture. And like Juarez was saying, it's affordable and your food is your medicine. So we have to really preserve our water. Here in the Bahamas, we have a very shallow water table, and water is a precious commodity. So really using chemicals not only make us unhealthy, but destroy our environment. So
Pamela, sorry, can I just ask, can everybody hear okay? And
Yes, seeing you great, and we can hear you fine. I will let you know if anything changes. Thank you.
perfect,
Looking
thank
great.
you.
So we utilize the leaf in our gardens and enhancing our soil and mulching and composting. We utilize the leaf, and this leaf here, this branch that we cut off, unfortunately, we don't have berries this time of the year, but the tree is doing a beautiful thing. It's putting out blossoms, and within the next couple of weeks, our 120 acres would look like there's snow because the trees are covered in flowers, and it's a beautiful fragrance. The tree puts out a natural bug repellent. So intercropping is what we do here on the Abaco Neem farm. We might have 5 neem trees and we'll intercrop with a citrus tree. So we don't have a problem with leaf greening of fruit drop. Our citrus trees did well. If it wasn't for the hurricane, we would have been exporting our citrus to Nassau, but we lost a lot of trees with the hurricane. But we utilize the leaf. But in this case, what I like to demonstrate today is we utilize the fruit. The tree produces an olive-like fruit, the size of an olive, and we depulp it, and this is what we end up with. These are the actual kernels of the fruit. You can put them in a mortar, crush them. All right? And my whole point is every farm, especially in the Caribbean, in the tropical and subtropical areas, should be growing neem trees. Every garden should have a neem tree. From a 1 acre farm to a 100-acre farm, surround your farm and intercrop with the neem trees. The neem tree is also called the fertilizer tree. It puts more nutrients in the ground than what it takes out. The neem cake has everything that a tree needs, a soil needs. It has a slow releasing nitrogen. It has the potash, the potassium, the calcium, the magnesium, and all the essential micronutrients. It's everything that a tree needs. So when we plant, when we harvest, we depulp. This goes through a tabby press, and this is a byproduct, the neem cake. So a simple pesticide, and neem is a 2-in-1 pesticide. That means it's a fertilizer and a pesticide. Do not wait until you have an infestation. So you would want to spray your garden or your farm once a week. You're feeding your trees. Also, you're preventing insects from accumulating. The neem cake it's not harmful to your beneficial insects like the ladybug and spiders. For example, the spiders, they eat the caterpillar that destroys your cabbage. So in a 5-gallon bucket, I'm going to demonstrate really quickly for you. In a 5-gallon bucket, put a half a cup
1 cup
of neem cake. You pour in your water. You let it sit for half an hour to an hour. You stir it up. When you go to use it as an agitator, or emulsifier, or sticker, if you're not certified organic, go ahead and use a little mild detergent like a Joy or Dawn, a couple drops. Stir it up, agitate it like an emulsifier. This will act as an emulsifier. You don't want to spray on a rainy day. It'll dilute it. So after an hour, you spray it into your sprayer, your backpack, or into a hand sprayer if you're doing your ornamentals, etc., etc. So initially, we put 1 cup. So the first 2 weeks, you use 1 cup per 5 gallons. After that, you can go ahead with a half a cup. This is so affordable. in 3 to 3.5 years, you'll have your own fruit. So plant neem trees into crop because it's all about prevention. You don't want to wait until you have an infestation. We've been using this for 28 years. We've had eggplant growing for up to 3 years in our gardens. We've had the purple okra growing up for 3 years in our gardens. So crop management is very important. Prevention is the key. So we use the neem cake. Very affordable. Your cost is down. You're not using the chemicals that can contaminate you and your environment. Your food, if you spray your tomatoes, if you spray your cabbage or cucumbers, you can eat right off the tree without washing them. You can't do that with a chemical. So it's all about prevention. Again, we try to spray our gardens twice a week. It's food. It's an immune enhancer for your plants. For tomatoes, we have a problem here in the Bahamas with nematodes. Like Juarez was saying, they look like little BBs on the roots. All right, not a problem. With neem is fantastic for that. It's an antibacterial, it's an antiviral. So trees pick up bacteria, they're immune. So the neem cake will enhance their immune system. We recommend all through our farm, our 120 acres, we have from mango trees, we have 107 variety of fruit and flowering trees that get sprayed with the neem cake. And I can tell you, papaya, we have an abundance of papaya this year. We don't have a whitefly issue. We don't have a wasp issue. Our fruit tastes delicious. We can't even keep up with the demand for our papayas. So we produce some of the highest quality of neem in the world. Another byproduct of the fruit is the neem oil, and that's common what most people see. And that, again, is extracted from the neem seeds. So you hear a lot about the neem oil, but you don't hear about the neem cake. The neem cake is wonderful. It's affordable. You can enhance your garden beds. You can enhance your fields. Also,
if I could just interject, Nick.
Go ahead.
In most of your home and garden stores, you'll find an neem insect repellent, and they do talk about how it kills the insects, and how often they're integrating neem with other chemicals that can kill insects. You might just want to emphasize that neem it's a non-violent pesticide. It doesn't kill anything.
Correct. I'm happy you brought that up, Daphne, because when you see people marketing neem, especially in the USA, they use the word kill. Neem doesn't kill. It repels, and it interferes with the metamorphosis, right? From the egg to the puma to the larvae to the adult.
So it actually will eventually reduce the infestation of pests.
The more you use the neem cake or the neem oil, you have less and less insects, all right? And
another point, just as before we forget on the neem oil, there are different grades of neem oil, just like there are different grades of olive oil or any other oil.
Correct.
So the neem oil that we produce is a pharmaceutical grade oil, which is safe to ingest.
Right.
Because a lot of times people will buy an inferior agricultural grade oil. We want to make sure that they know that that is not ingestible.
That agriculture grade oil only be used in agriculture.
Go ahead.
So in relation to what you're actually just sharing right now, we do have a question in a chat. Someone is asking, what about bees?
Oh, very good point. I actually am a beekeeper, and we do produce wonderful neem honey. And you can go on, and Nick, but we have our bees are buzzing all around the farm, and they love the neem blossoms.
I think you shared a picture of a beehive, right?
Yes, I did show you a picture of a beehive, and
share that.
Right now, you can walk down every block in our field and just stop, and you will see bees. And we produce a lot. For 6 hives, we produce a lot of honey. We produce a lot of, we have happy bees.
Yeah, so as you can see, that hive is actually, It's around our coconut trees. It's around, we have that, the Mexican sunflower, which is high in nitrogen. There are neem trees all in the background. And the beehive was very happy and produced very excellent honey.
Let me talk about the neem tree really quick, okay? In some parts of the world, the neem tree is called the fertilizer tree. It actually puts more nutrients in the ground than what it takes out. How many trees do that? This is such a beneficial tree. This tree is wonderful for reforestation. All right, we're actually doing reforestation in Paraguay. We are commissioned to grow 400,000 neem trees, not only to provide, and in Paraguay, they're known for their cattle, their beef, not only to provide shade for the cattle, but animal life, you know, and so a habitat for animal life. Neem is going to become more and more popular. You're going to see, you're going to see more. Neem is going to be part of integrated medicine. Neem is very safe to use in agriculture. In the past year, France is now allowing their farmers to use neem. They did a study here on our farm with the neem because they said it was a threat to animal life, which we did a test. We found over 256 birds' nests on our farm in the month of April in 2018. In 2018, there was a study done on our farm, and we found over 256 birds' nests, and the birds and the eggs and everything were healthy. So those who say that neem can be detrimental or whatever, that is that's false. Okay, I want to clarify that.
And I wanted to ask on that specifically. I know you had also mentioned that you use it as pest management for your own chickens, even like for your live animals?
Yes, Pamela. So we use it, we put, depending on how many chickens, so we have roughly 100 chickens. After today, we have roughly 100 chickens.
We had two hens give us one with 11 biddies and one with 8.
Right. So
on the same day, a mother and her daughter both produced on the same day today.
So we'll take in their water and the drip system, we'll take a couple teaspoons of neem cake and just put that in their water. And that is an enhancement, an immune enhancement for the chickens. Chickens have intestinal disorders, pigs, cattle, same thing. This is wonderful for livestock. And I really, really hope when we talk about sustainable farming, that farmers have also livestock like chickens. We are extending our chicken coop right now as we talk, so we can have more chicken manure as a soil enhancement when we do the composting. All right, it's one of our main ingredients besides the potash and the neem cake. We also apply the neem cake into our composting.
Yeah, right? I'd just like to mention actually, as you know, thanks to World Central Kitchen, we received the grant to produce soil. One of our biggest challenges here is, you know, the quality of our soil, which is mainly limestone and rock. So we're producing, we've got 4 bins, commercial size, where we're doing composting to eventually produce soil. And that's what Nick's referring to. We're incorporating the chicken poop. So we feed the chicken the neem, the chicken poops the neem, and we recycle it into the soil.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. So Nick and Daphne, in the same way of animal production. So I read about it, but I never met anyone that has used neem water to spray cattle to control the tick. Have you seen this or know that someone already using this kind of products to control the ticks on cattle?
Yes, we are experimenting with that in Paraguay. Okay, and so basically you put the neem into a sprayer, you walk the cattle through, and for ticks.
Also, right? We did a test in Abaco as well some time ago when Winding Bay had stables. They were having a problem with the flies on their horses, and they did a similar treatment, spraying the horses with the neem spray to keep the flies away from them. Yeah, and they had good
Great
results from that.
results.
Yeah, no, that sounds great because in cattle production, one of them mainly chemicals used it's the ones to control ticks, and they have a heavy impact not just on environment, but when we consume the animal product, the
We're
part of
getting
the trace of this are relocated to our systems, and it's kind of worry about it. So
yeah.
thanks
And
for
not to forget also domestic animals. A lot of times we talk about livestock, but then we forget
Yep.
about the domestic animals. And one of our very good product lines is for dogs.
It's a natural
they
dewormer.
they consume the same neem cake. We provide it in a capsule form or loose granule form, and they eat it to protect them against fleas and ticks, because it exudes through their pores and repels the fleas and ticks from the dogs. And also it's a natural dewormer. So it helps against heartworm and that sort of thing.
Great,
Yeah.
great. That was my next question about animal production, because in tropics control intestinal worms in especially in small ruminants are it is a challenge. So they are using this kind of product to control the worms on the small ruminants too, as sheep and goats.
And chickens.
Yes, and Abaco Big Bird here in
We have a
in
local
Marsh
chicken
Harbor,
farm,
they are using it in their chickens,
and they have a
and
better survival rate with their chicks.
yeah,
And they eat better, and their appetite in 6 weeks, they're ready for market. And the bottom line is their feathers, their eyes, the markings on the chickens. It's a great tasting chicken.
well,
Over
and they
here
don't have to give them antibiotics, so the consumer is very happy
in the heart.
that they're eating a healthier chicken, a more organic chicken. So yeah.
I was wondering, Nick and Daphne, essentially the main ingredient within the neem cake is the seeds, right? The grinded seeds, which is the
Right.
byproduct of the oil, right? So you're not wasting anything at all.
We're not wasting anything. So right now, that's been sitting for a couple minutes since we've been talking. So the neem cake, the residue is in here. All right. So we'll leave
What would
this.
you do with that, Nick?
Okay. So even after an hour, all of this will not dissolve. But you can take that residue when you're doing your cabbage seedlings or your tomato seedlings or whatever seedlings, take that residue and mix it into your potting soil, all right, into your soil mix. Again, for nematodes, when we go to plant our tomatoes in our beds, our seedlings, or when we make a hole, we take a handful of neem cake, put it in the hole, and then cover it up. And again, it's all the food that a plant needs.
Just a question.
Go ahead.
Would you consider that valuable enough to reuse as making a liquid spray, or would you just use it in the soil around the
I
plants?
would use it in the soil.
Okay.
Take any residue left over,
Or
use
around
it in
your
the soil.
ornamental potting plants?
For ornamental plants, yes. People that have nurseries, etc. But we spray it on everything: our guava trees, our mango trees, banana trees, or white sigatoga, black sigatoga. We don't have a problem. In the last couple of years in Florida, they've had a lot of fruit drop, greening, like Warren was mentioning. And we didn't, and even throughout the Bahamas, we had that problem, but we did not have that problem on this farm. And everybody said, well, why don't you have that problem? And the bottom line is we use the neem cake, we spray. And so you can't wait till you have an infestation. Just spray. The tree needs food, just like we need food. So get on a spraying program. Also, when you spray, you're monitoring, you're scouting your plants,
One suggestion, we did this with several farmers in Andros. We did a project consulting 5 different farmers there who wanted to go organic. They had been traditional, chemical using farms, and they took one section and they did their traditional way, and then another section where they just use neem and nothing, no chemicals, and they were amazed
We did a taste test.
At the results. We did a visual test and a taste test so that people could taste the tomato from one and the other. And every time the one that had no chemicals had a better taste. And also the plants, you could actually see the structure of the plants. The stems were stronger. They could hold themselves up. They didn't need as much propping. So neem works at a cellular level, be it on a human, on a pet, on an animal, on a plant. And that is really the key, that the cellular structure and the immune system in the humans and then the cellular structure in the plants is improved.
And another thing is this, by using the neem, you're protecting our water. Our water is our most precious commodity. As we travel, we see that the water, there's very little good quality water. Here in Abaco, we have some of the best quality water in the world. And on another island called Andros, we have great drinking water. But by using the chemicals, and if we have a shallow water table, we can dig 6 to 8 feet down and strike water here. So those chemicals are going into the ground. Those chemicals end up in our body. So we're protecting our environment. This is a safe product. I can't emphasize it enough. I hope that if any of you, the attendees, are ever in the Bahamas, to please visit our farm. And so we can demonstrate to you how all our trees are doing.
Okay, so I understand, Nick, thank you, that there are some great comments and some questions that we would like to address. So why don't you come over here and we can switch our camera around and sit next to me.
That was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. We already have some comments on that's very thorough information. That's been very useful. So anyone at this point that is interested in asking these amazing resources we have today, now is the moment. So take the chance and ask all of the questions that you might have, either to Wadis about his presentation or to Nick and Daphne about theirs.
The neem tree can be grown all through Central America, the Caribbean, and South America. All right, please utilize this tree. This tree is great for our environment, you know, and it's affordable. It can grow 6 to 8 inches a year. I mean, 6 to 8 feet a year. It's an amazing tree, family to the mahogany tree. It only requires 18 inches of rainfall.
Well, the best thing about the tree is that it grows so fast and it has a beautiful canopy and provides wonderful shade. It is 10 degrees cooler under a neem tree than it is anywhere else. And so with summer heat, it's not affected as badly by drought. And it's a great place to have a domino table, sit underneath, have a picnic, and enjoy the great outdoors.
Yeah.
I love
and
it.
be protected from the mosquitoes.
You know, and it's safe. It's safe for our environment and it's safe for consumption, you know. And all the attendees, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We could even send you some seeds if you want to start growing neem on your farms. We highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
That's awesome. So I have a couple of questions. One in regards to the information that you were sharing about livestock. How often do you have to feed the domestic and livestock for this to stay active?
So we feed this to our chickens when we change the water. All right, we put in a couple teaspoons. Now that's for about 100 chickens. So we put in just a couple teaspoons, and it just keeps their immune system strong. We have free-range chickens, so they get out. They help control insects like the ducks do. We even have ducks too, by the way. And but it doesn't interfere with them eating it. They drink the water, and the bottom line is, we have healthy chickens. When people come here
for domestic animals, you can give them, depending on their pounds, 1 teaspoon a day, half a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons a day, depending on the size of the dog, or 1 or 2 capsules, whichever method you prefer.
I mean, people love their dogs. We feed it to the dogs all the time.
Obviously, if you're dealing with a horse, you're going to need to have a higher.
Same thing. By the way, horses colic. You know, here in the Bahamas, we have sandy soil. In Florida, a lot of sand, so horses colic a lot.
Colic is a big issue.
And so it helps prevent the colicky. You know, and you can lose. Our animals are part of our lives.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for that information. We have another question from Luckner. Hi, Luckner. Have you guys used neem to combat insects like beetles in your beehives?
Yeah, but we don't really
We
have that
don't
problem.
have that problem. Luckner, I'm happy that you're attending. I know that you're doing a lot of great work in Freeport, and we encourage you. You don't know it, but we hear about you through our mutual friends, and we compliment you. We've not encountered, thank goodness, that issue, and maybe it's because we're surrounded and the hives are surrounded by neem. But I'm certain that it wouldn't cause any harm. So it's worth trying, and I would like to know the results. If you could share your results with us.
We have another beekeeper that comes out here and assists us with our bees, okay? Because we're busy running a 120-acre farm, and they can't believe how much production of honey that we produce and how healthy our hives. You know,
Mind you, we do have a huge shepherd needle buffet for the bees as well, because just trying to manage the grass and cutting, you know, it's very difficult and challenging with limited labor. So we do have a shepherd needle that goes to flower almost on half the farm at any given time.
Yeah.
So they're happy.
Happy bees.
Yeah, and our citrus, even while our citrus are mature, we've had
oh, they're flowering.
we've had sour orange, rough skin lemon, good smooth lemons, and even though we've collected all the mature fruit, we're already reflowering. So that's excellent. Oh, Nick is going to go and bring a bottle of honey too from the counter. He's gonna show off his lemons because we sold everything. We have a handful left, which we saved for ourselves. But even today, we're still getting people asking us, "Have you got any more sour orange or lemons we can buy?"
Look at the size of these lemons. Chemical free.
These
Look at
are
the size of this lemon.
okay. This is a smooth, what we call a smooth skin lemon, and this is not the largest. We had some smaller, of course, but we had some about twice the size of that. And what is that you have there?
This is our honey. This is a sour orange. We're still harvesting this time of year when people don't have any fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the color of the honey that we have at this particular time.
Yeah. Chemical free, you know.
That's fantastic. We have, I think, a couple more comments. People that are interested. Philip is interested in more information. He's sharing his email. Let me actually copy. Philip, we will be sending all of this information along with Daphne and Nick's contact information. So stay tuned to your email because that will be the main way we will be sharing all of this information. Someone else asked about if we will be able to share this video. This one in particular is limited to our program participants, but we do have some demo videos that Daphne and Nick very fantastically shared with us. So yes, we can actually attach those as well, and you can access and check those out too. So those are going to be very useful. So let's see what else we've got here. Thanks, I will try, says Luckner, and thanks for the encouragement. I love it. Tiffany is saying, I use it daily to control whitefly, changed everything within 1 week. It's amazing. Awesome.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Let's see. So at this point, I don't have any more questions. Let's actually give maybe a minute or two for anyone else who would like to ask any questions, either to Nick, Daphne, or Wadis about pest management, something you might be dealing with in your own farms, something that you'd like to discuss or share with the group. More than happy to address those at this moment. I don't know if Daphne has anything else they'd like to share.
I just wanted to, I'm sitting here looking at all of our faces, and it's really nice that we can communicate without masks.
Yeah, right. We can see our full faces.
Yeah, we're not able to be with each other, but we can actually see our whole face. And, you know, that's one of the things with this COVID crisis. I want to just emphasize that I don't care about the vaccine or whatever, you know, they come out with, the doctors come out with. Yes, everybody who wants to get the vaccine, I encourage them. But it's only going to work as good as our bodies are. We have to keep our immune system strong. Yeah. And for nothing else, that the pest management and preservation of our environment and water, those are essential everyday things. But one thing we forget also that's essential and everyday is taking care of our bodies, because if you don't have the farmer, who's going to manage the farm? And I always tell my husband, I keep him as long as he can keep working.
Yeah, but your food is your medicine, so it's important that we eat good quality food, chemical free as
We
much
have
as
to
possible.
stay healthy.
Yeah, as much as possible to eat chemical free. I'll tell you what, when you stop using the chemicals, you're going to see the ladybugs, you're going to see the spiders, you're going to see the dragonflies, you're going to see the butterflies.
And the birds.
When we have visitors and the birds, when we have visitors to the farm, they can't get over the variety of butterflies and dragonflies. And all of that is a sign of a healthy environment. Yeah. And that is because we are chemical free on this farm, and that is a big part of prevention and intercropping with the neem trees. Please, I cannot emphasize that. And the little farmers, surround your farm with neem trees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
Okay, no, in the same line, when we are talking about to make good agriculture or the right agriculture, it is make agriculture in collaboration or inside the ecological patterns and the nature, not against the nature. That is what the industrial agriculture has failed to be against nature, right? So we need to insert in the natural cycles of the ecosystems to ensure to produce good amount, good quality of food without damaging us, because at the end of the day, everything that you done to the environment, it's against us. Okay, it's against
monocropping is
and we are not saying that you need to switch if you are conventional, just jump to this field of agriculture, but you have the tools, and it is what we want to provide to improve your practices on farm to our participants, right? And to connect all of you, because Abaco, Neem, Daphne, and Nix are our participants. So we want to create this network. Our program does not, it is not named Food Producer Network just to sound sexy to some in some way. It is because it is what we want to create or help to create within the Caribbean, and in the future keep spreading this to a bigger area, right?
Sharing information.
Because we are all together in this, right? So I just want to add that the neem tree grow really well, as Nick and Daphne has been mentioned. In Puerto Rico, you can find some of them at the side of the road. Even on past November, my second day of work on WCK, I traveled to USBI, and in St. Croix, I can identify some of those trees at side of the road. I remember one that was really a huge neem tree. So neem, it grow really, really, really well. So just to encourage all our participants to include them on farms too.
Yeah, one thing, when you talk about the huge tree, neem trees do get huge, but when we're for farmers, we encourage you to keep them 35, 40 feet, especially in a hurricane zone like we are. Not to get top heavy and not to get full canopied. You have to prune them and utilize those.
So you put all that in the chipper and it goes right back into the ground.
So every part of the tree, from the seed, from the leaf to the bark, everything is reused in the farm in some way.
Definitely, Nick. I just have one question. It is not have to be to related to neem, but so on bananas, the bees were Africanized, or they keep being European?
We haven't seen them here.
Okay.
We have African bees here. We don't have that.
Thanks.
We don't have that problem that we are aware of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
thank you. Was just curiosity.
Yeah.
Sorry. We have an open question in the chat. Someone, Philip, actually asked, how can we use neem for mosquito control? Do you guys have any suggestions?
Yeah, you can take if you have a tree, let's say you're in the back, you're grilling or barbecuing, whatever, you're socializing. You can take the leaf, put it in a coconut husk, in a shelled coconut, and put that in a pit and burn it, and it acts as a repellent, along with some citronella. We also have citronella grass in our fields. Whatever we put into our product, we grow. So we have citronella, of course, the coconut, and of course, thousands of neem trees. So you take the neem leaf, some citronella, stick it in a coconut husk, burn that in the pit, and that acts as a repellent. Okay.
Cool strategy right there. You can find that everything around your yard. Boom.
Yeah, everything right here. You know, when you're growing the neem trees, like any tree, cut off the bottom branches. If they're in a hurricane zone or they experience an occasional hurricane, cut off the bottom branches, interior branches that rub, cut those so the wind can pass through, and don't let the tree grow more than 20, 30 feet. You don't have to. You'll get more and more berries. They're easy to harvest and collect the berries. You can store the berries, dry them first before you store them because you don't want mold and contamination. All right. And so your seed should look nice and clean, not spotted with bacteria or mold. And that is what you use. You put in your mortar and go ahead and spray. And if you have excess, put it into your soil, into your garden beds.
It'll eventually break down as well.
We're doing a hydroponic system right now. We're being built as we talk, and we're going to be using neem as part of the nutrients to feed the plants. You know? So neem is going to become more and more popular. Start growing them. You can contribute to the health in your area also. You know, again, you know, great for soil enhancement.